Building muscle on a plant-based diet, can you actually cause hypertrophy in your muscles, look bulk, look big, and actually get fit, be lean, get the body of your dreams eating plants? Can you exclude meat from your diet? Can you exclude animal protein and actually be healthier? Is that possible? So stay there until the end so we can hear Korin Sutton experience on the Frugal Health Podcast. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys today again. After thriving for almost 18 years as a raw vegan, it healed myself from so many diseases and actually gave me a way better life. So it's my mission, my life's mission, to share with most people as I can what actually worked for me, and I think can help the planet to reach higher heights, to reach a higher health and a higher state of peace that we all seek for. So introduce yourself for us a little bit, Korin, so we can get to the nitty gritty for everybody about building muscle on a plant-based diet.
Yeah, no doubt. My name is Korin Sutton. I've been vegan for over 11 years. Also, I'm a war veteran, so I deployed to Operation Iraqi Freedom 3 and 4, served in the United States Marine Corps for 4 years, fully active service, did another 4 years in the United States Navy Reserves as well. Also, I'm a 3-time pro bodybuilder, especially in the tested bodybuilding circuits and federations, and also won over I believe 28 different bodybuilding shows, where between multiple federations like IFBB, NPC, NGA, AMBF, NGA, NGA, NFF, and many more. So I think that's it. Yeah. Oh yeah. And also I'm an online fitness coach. Own a business called Body HD Fitness, where we help new vegans get abs and keep them forever. So that's one of the things that we really focus on.
Nice. Yeah, I have, as I said before, I have seen you on talking before we started to record. I have seen you on VegFest several times. I follow your profile, and I have been to the plant-based movement for like 17 years. So I know most of the plant-based bodybuilders and fit profiles. Although maybe I'm in Portuguese, you guys are in English. I'm start to grow in my English channel and my content. So almost 10 years, you said, right? 11
Yeah.
years?
11 years vegan. Yeah, about to be 12
Nice.
pretty soon.
And you didn't develop a protein deficiency?
Not yet.
It's quite funny because people think I'm actually, wait for a few more years. And I'm like, when I turn into 40 years of plant-based,
Exactly.
it's crazy. They don't understand that they can, if it's working for a decade or more, it's probably, going to work for the whole your entire life. So, before we start talking about everything, most people always want to know, what do you eat? They cannot grasp the what would be protein ideas, high protein meal ideas and things like that. So can you tell us a little bit about your daily diet? So
Yeah. So some of the things that my average what I eat in a day is usually I start off in the morning with a tofu scramble, or I have this recipe that I created myself called a broken burger bowl. So it's pretty much like broken seitan beef crumbles, and but with the same ingredients that you usually use for a tofu scramble, except without the turmeric and the black salt, you know, since the seitan that I'm using already has sodium in it. So I use that, and then I throw in like bell peppers and onions and spinach and things like that in there, mushrooms, garlic, and some nutritional yeast. Then after that, I have a big protein shake, somewhere around pretty on that lately. It's not because my diet always changes, you know. But right now I'm currently bulking, but I usually have like a 60-gram protein shake from Phyta. So I use Phyta protein powder. And then, and if you don't know who Phyta is, it's a brand new supplement company that they make protein powder for vegans, and it's owned by the person who created Game Changers, James Wilk, the UFC fighter. So he came out with his own protein line, and I'm actually one of the affiliates for it as well, and it's really good. I truly love it. Easy to mix. It's made out of fava beans, so it's hypoallergenic, and amazing flavors. From one of my favorites is the mocha coffee, because it just gives you that like coffee feeling. And I like coffee, so sometimes I don't want coffee that's caffeinated. So I just have this protein shake, which is great, you know. And then after that, lately I would eat out, so become bulking. So it's like so what I usually do is I'll order some Thai food from, and the Thai food that I usually get is like a stir fry tofu scramble. So it's like tofu means not tofu scramble, stir fry tofu. So it's tofu with some a California blend of vegetables, which is mostly like broccoli, some onions and carrots, all stir fried, and they put like this. I guess it's like a teriyaki garlic sauce, and they stir fry that with it, with some white rice. But that's usually like the meal that I have each day, you know, on average, you know, something like that. So, and just a big breakfast, a big protein shake, and then a big dinner, and then that's pretty much it.
How many calories per day? Like I know it varies because of bulking and you know like cutting, but how many calories a day you eat on bulking usually?
My bulk's not really that high. It's like 2,500 calories, you know, so it's not as high as what most people think. But what people don't understand is that when it comes to like calories and everything, and when it comes to bulking and stuff, is going to vary with each individual, and especially when it comes to their lifestyle. So first, I'm 38 years old, and then I live more of a sedentary lifestyle. So for me, I don't have to be consuming so many calories to build muscle. Just because like my job is mostly here in this office, I sit down or standing up, and that's it. So I don't really move in my office as much. Uh, the only activity that I do have is when I'm training. So, but majority of my activity throughout the day is very sedentary. So that's why it's pretty low.
Nice, nice. And what about your training? People think like usually if you are a bodybuilder, you're going to train every single day and you know every single muscle every day. What about your training?
I train about 5 6 days out of the week, and usually the 5 days is like you know, basic split routine like chest and back. I mean chest and tries, back and buys. I hit legs twice, so I do one day quad dominant, one hamstring dominant, and then I do arms. But then I do something called touch ups. So if I'm doing like chest and tries, I might even hit up like a little bit of calves or some abs here and there, or if I'm doing back and buys, I might hit shoulders as well. So it's very mixed. I do like work out in that particular way, hitting multiple muscle groups in one workout session, and then I do a little bit of cardio, and that's only because I'm bulking, and I'm trying to hit up like all my weak spots and stuff like that, because I want to get back into competing by next year in 2025. So this year is just like improvement season, working on my weaknesses, just trying to build as much muscle that I can within the year. So in 2025 I can compete again, and then become my goal right now is to get the IFBB Pro card. So so that's why I'm doing the bulk this year. You know.
Nice, but like, so I didn't understand pretty well. Like, so you do cardio,
Yeah, I do cardio. So mhm.
like, how many times per week? Because most people think that if you do cardio, you're going to lose muscle. It's going to be hard for gaining muscle. What's your take on that?
No, I mean I do steady state, and because of my regiment right now at the moment, I only do like 30 minutes. My coach actually wants me to do less than that, you know, but um, I me personally, I don't like doing less because it's just it's kind of hard when you're a coach yourself and you just understand the benefits of cardio because it's good for cardiovascular health. And for me, I feel better after I do cardio. You know, even if it's short, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I just normally feel better. What I've tried doing like zero cardio and training, and I just don't feel right. Like I feel more sluggish. My workouts actually feel harder. So I usually do cardio. And maybe there's days I don't, like maybe some leg days here and there I just don't. But I usually do have cardio included in my routine. But you can build muscle you can build muscle doing cardio. You just don't want to do excessive amount if building muscle is your goal. Like you don't want to do excessive amount. If you do excessive amount, then it's going to require more in the food department, and you have to eat more. So and then you know, and everyone knows right now food is very expensive. So so it's like if you're trying to balance your budget, I wouldn't like recommend doing excessive amount of cardio. You know.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I feel the same. Like I have weightlifted back in the like 20 years ago, eating a lot of meat, rice and beans, and you know, like I have weightlifted as raw vegan, eating a lot of protein, being raw vegan. These last couple of days I have fasted, so I'm a little bit thinner. But I usually I hit the gym every time, right? Like, but wow, now I'm really into tennis right now, like so I'm not managing to maintain the same weight I do when I lift like five
Yeah.
to six times a week, like just going to the gym 3 times a week and playing a lot of tennis on the sun. You know, but I don't see any effect on muscle growth, right? Like I see the same efficiency, performance like with weightlifting, but for sure I get a little bit leaner doing a lot of cardio, like because I end up playing tennis like 2 hours per day at least, right?
Yeah.
So but at the same time people think like, oh, there's a lot of misconceptions I think about, like, you know, cardio, and you know, maybe for the static, the shape, you're not going to look as bulk, but like losing muscle or not gaining muscle, I don't agree with it. And for sure, I feel a lot better with cardio. I work better, you know, like even
Yeah.
sexual performance is better with cardio, you know, like
Mhm.
when I
Absolutely.
don't when I don't drop it. So so tell me more about your diet actually. So although you eat for as far as I understand, you eat like tofu, tempeh, tofu, and also the seitan is actually made. It's meat made of wheat. A lot of people don't know what seitan is, right?
Yeah, yeah. So seitan's made out of wheat gluten. So it's and if you don't know what wheat gluten is, it's the endosperm of the wheat seed. So the best example I can give is like if you look at like a corn kernel and you chop the kernel in half, and you see the white stuff inside that seed, that's called the endosperm. So that's what wheat gluten is. And what you have to understand is that seeds, any type of seeds, are very nutrient dense, very powerful, has tons of properties in it. And what they do is to make a long explanation short, is they extract it with like they extract the endosperm and then isolate the protein from the starch, and that's how you get a lot of protein. So, for example, if you go to the store and buy just pure wheat gluten flour, okay, you can make this at home. Because some people, especially right now at this moment, um, many people feel that anything that's processed is bad for you. But the thing is that this is a natural processing method. So there's certain foods that's out there that's very minimally processed, and this is one of them. And you again, you can make it at home. But when it comes to the seitan itself, just a quarter cup of the powder is about 25 grams of protein. Just a quarter cup, you know. So it's very high in protein, and I even made recipes with it. Like I have like this a pure, I call it seitan bread. So then making it into a meat, you can actually bake it into a bread. And then it's like a high, like one of my rolls, I have it in my cookbook called Macro Mastery. And one roll, I believe, is like 15 grams of protein, you know, and the carbs are low, the fats are low. I think it's like only 3 grams of carbs, 3 to 5 grams of carbs, 1 gram of fat or 0 grams of fat, somewhere around there. So it's super macro friendly, but it's very good. So, but you could do so many things with wheat gluten. You can make like different types of meat textures, like you can make a brisket, you can make like vegan steak, vegan chicken, you know, a whole bunch of stuff. And then you can also make breads as well, you know. So it's a really diverse ingredient that you can use.
Nice, versatile. Yeah, I never tasted seitan, but I have tried tempeh and tofu, and they all taste really good. And I feel some difference from the soy protein, like when I eat the whole beans, right? Like from like edamame, for example, from even some types of beans. I think soy is different. We know that soy is different by macronutrient composition, right? A lot more fat, a lot more protein, but you can actually feel it. I don't know. When I eat it, I feel different. I feel it's yeah, it's higher in protein. I don't know. I feel the aesthetic. It changes a lot. Although
Mhm.
I don't do soy frequently, you know, I seen it. Here we don't have too edamame, but I love edamame. Damn, it's probably one of the most tasty beans out there. But let's talk about like for example, how much protein in average do you consume per day? Because that's a lot. That's a topic that's a lot talked. You know, in the not just in the plant-based movement, but more in the fit movement, in the bodybuilding communities. You know, people always think like, how many grams per day of per kilo body weight kilo or pounds? You know, like
Yeah, yeah. Currently, I'm doing about 220 grams of protein per day. So that's how much I'm doing personally. And you know, I decided to do it because you know, again, my goal right now at the moment is to build muscle. So you know, do I recommend everyone to do what I do? No, you know, but because like it's a little bit different when you're doing an actual sport, because and that's why I always try to explain to people. I'm like, don't follow what other people are doing, because you have to understand what their goal is, and I have a particular goal. So my goal is a sport orientated. So I'm in the sport of bodybuilding, so that's why I eat that way. But when it comes to like my students, like the people that comes within my program, their protein intake is usually a lot lower than that, because it's not necessary to be consuming that much protein, especially if it's just for lifestyle or just pure aesthetics reasons or health. You don't need to consume as much as that. Um, you know, I was like, for example, like if I have a female who's about like 140 pounds, maybe 24% body fat. You know, she like that female probably be doing like 100 grams of protein, maybe 120 grams of protein. You know, not so excessive. Same thing with a man who's 150 pounds with like, let's say like 10% body fat, maybe like 140, maybe even 150. You know, but it really all depends on each individual's goals, their activity levels, there's so many factors. But I do feel that when it comes to the protein talk, it like everyone just puts this blanket statement saying like 1 gram of protein per body weight, which I'm like, nah, like that's too much because it depends on your goal. Like if you're doing something like more endurance sports, you definitely don't need that much protein, you know, because your goal isn't to build like crazy amount of muscle. Your goal is more performance based. So you're going to have less protein and more like carbs and fats because you need it for fuel. You need it more for performance. Bodybuilding is not a performance sport. It's a aesthetic sport, you know. So that's why there's in the bodybuilding world it's usually considered to have more protein. But when it comes to other sports that's more performance based, then not really. You don't need that much, especially the type of muscle that you're trying to build. Even when it comes to strength, you don't need to be consuming like a gram of protein per body weight for sure. Yeah. So at the end of the day, it really depends on your goals, lifestyle, activities. A lot of things really matters.
Nice, nice. So you don't think there's like a a perfect amount, like what would suggest, like if a person's not a bodybuilder but he's trying to grow muscle or maintain it and have a good shape but not like, you know, excessive 1.0 per kilo of body weight, that like, and how does the person would get it, right? Because we know, most people know at home that legumes are the biggest source of protein in a plant-based diet, would be the most preferable because of calories, etc. But how do you suggest a person like get that amount of protein?
I mean, it again, it really depends on their goals. So, like, if someone has, like, let's say the target goal is like 120, I mean, you could definitely do that all through 100% whole foods. You know, it's not hard at all. But if your goal is a lot higher, you know, like maybe like 180, 200, things like that, then you want to move more towards like, you know, protein shakes, tofu, tempeh, seitan, um, you know, what was that? Mock meats, you know, like you want to look at stuff like that because that's more isolated in protein with a combination of like whole foods as well, like beans and rice and fruits and vegetables with a combination of those type of foods as well. But like I feel like if your goal is a lot lower, it's easier to get it through purely 100% whole foods plant-based diet for sure. So
Nice.
again, it really depends, you know.
I agree with, like, I feel the same as you said, like for example, yeah, for sure, when I do a really high protein diet even without like supplements, I look a lot better. But well, like
Yeah.
I'm going to compete in a tennis tournament this week, so like if I do a little bit of calorie restriction and protein restriction, I look and I did a 36 hour water fast. I can look a lot leaner, but like
Yeah.
for playing tennis, you know, I hit a lot more balls. I reach the balls way too sooner. You know, like I'm faster. You know, like it's pretty easier for the coordination to be like in the low side of your weight, right? Like
Mhm.
I feel a lot difference for the sport. That's why lost some weight in purpose. So yeah, for sure it depends. It depends. It's just that like I'm trying to make people at home understand how they can increase their protein intake, and most people don't. Yeah, in America, in Brazil, everywhere, most people don't eat enough beans, for example, lentils.
Yeah.
A lot of people that I know are like, yeah, but I never tasted chickpeas. And I'm like, what? You know, like chickpeas, lentils? You don't know? You know, people don't know even what tahini is, or like, you know, like a hummus is. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And I can feel that because I was the same like 20 years ago, you know, but, you know, things change. We start to open up to new possibilities, and we see that, you know, like it's way much better.
Yeah, and one thing that I teach a lot of my students who's involved with my program, I teach them how to use my Fitness Pal. So this is like a food diary where you can track all your meals, And this is the best way to learn about like how much protein different foods have, and then you can create like your diverse meals with that. And then they have chronometer too. So, but the one that my students actively use is MyFitnessPal. But that's something that I do teach a lot of my students is when it comes to creating meals, like create meals that's more macro friendly, so they're able to get the protein goals. I don't I and that's why I don't like using word like I personally don't say things. I even make social media reels on this talking about like nuts is not a protein source, beans is not a protein source. It's more of a carb source. It's more of a fat source. But you can because the mistake that a lot of new vegans make is that by saying that there's beans as a protein source and rice as a protein source and it's whole foods plant based, then they'll go from eating meat, which meat is a protein source and it's an isolated protein source because if you're getting like a lean piece of meat, like lean sirloin steak, you're getting about 32 grams of protein and the fats are very low. It's about like, 5 grams, 10 grams of fat. So like that's something's a little bit more isolated just naturally because it's protein, it's meat, right? But what people don't think about, even vegans don't think about when they say these type of remarks, is that you're telling someone that who's coming from an animal-based diet that meat is equivalent to beans. And I've seen these memes, and it's like, no, it's not. Like no one's not gonna eat 100 grams of beans compared to like that type of meat. Like it's not comparable because when it comes to the macros, to get that much, like to get up to let's say 50 grams of black beans, right? To get 50 grams, to get 50 grams of protein from black beans, that's 2.5 cups of beans. And so yeah, you can reach that goal, but how much carbs are you getting at the same time? You're getting about like almost 100 grams of carbohydrates, So it's like, and when it comes to calories, and if someone's trying to lose weight, if they're not in a calorie deficit, that could easily put them in a calorie surplus. Where and I'm saying this because these are the people that comes to me. They have bellies, they don't have no 6-pack, they're not ripped, they can't build muscle, and they're lost. They're like, look, I went plant-based because I read this doctor book or I saw this documentary or I follow this influencer and I don't understand why I'm not losing the weight. And I'm like, because, what you're using as protein sources is completely wrong. These are aids as protein sources. So like so when it comes to learning how to incorporate more protein while being in the deficit, that's where people have problems. Or incorporating protein, a right amount of protein, while being in a slight caloric surplus without putting on excessive amount of body fat. That's the problems that people have because people aren't being very specific with the words, especially for the goals and the problems that most people are usually having. And that's something that I really help people with. That have a better understanding how to build meals to those particular meals so they can actually get to the goals that they want. Hopefully that makes sense.
Do you want to know more about fasting and how to live a healthful life, or even raw vegan recipes? Hygienic Fasting, Nature Surgery, and the book Natural Delicacies, Cooking Without a Stove are available on Amazon, and Hygienic Fasting is actually available on print on demand, so you can receive it at your home. But I also have 8 books published, 6 online courses, retreats here in Brazil, and I attend patients online in private sessions. Unfortunately, all the other books and the online courses are still only available in Portuguese. But if you want my help as a nutritionist, or even if you want to come to a retreat in Brazil, just sign up. The contact will be on the website and in the links below. And if you like the content, please don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell button for notifications, comment, share the video. If you do all those, you are going to help the channel to grow. If we grow, you grow together, getting more vital, life-changing information and help yourself and others to make this a more healthy and better planet for all of us. Nice, nice. So how do you suggest, like, if it's not beans and nuts and seeds. I didn't understand like the how to get it without eating too much carbs, because you end up getting too much carbs like anyway if we most plants are based on carbs, right? Like, so you cannot run too much out of carbs, and you also need carbs even for protein synthesis, or else you're going to go for gluconeogenesis, break down a lot of the protein you eat. So
I mean, this where it really boils down to. It really boils down to each individual's goals. So let's say we have person A who wants to lose body fat. First thing we need to understand is that it's not about the food that's going to help them lose body fat. It's about how much food. It doesn't matter what diet they're on at the end of the day. They could be vegan, animal-based, carnivore, keto, paleo, pescatarian. The list goes on. It doesn't matter. All diets work at the end of the day. It's just you need to pick the diet that's going to work best for you. So the first rule of thumb that works in all diets is they need to be in a calorie deficit. That means that they have to be burning more calories than what they're consuming. That's number one. Number two comes down to the macronutrients. How are we going to stay consistent with the particular type of macros? Macronutrients is large nutrients that's vital for the body to function. So this is your protein, carbs, and fat. Out of those macros, how do you want to partition the macros so it fits your lifestyle for the goals that you're trying to achieve? And this is why I said in the beginning, like, the protein depends on your goal. So let's say the person A wants to just lose body fat and build some muscle. That's usually the what everyone tells me. I want to lose body fat and build muscle. And they live a sedentary lifestyle, and they're not in any sport. They work in an office, in a cubicle, and they just want to, just for lifestyle, improve health, improve aesthetics, and improve self-confidence. That's usually like the typical client I usually get. And they're lacking energy, they want more energy, all this stuff. So what I usually do in that scenario is when I partition the macros, 35% of their diet is going to come from protein. Why? Because it's more satiated, right? When they eat the protein sources. So they're going to get protein from like tofu and from seitan. I can incorporate tempeh if needed, some protein powders, and also mock meats, right? And when it comes to the mock meats, it's usually minimally processed. That's their primary protein source, okay? Then when it comes to the carbohydrates, right, 25% of their food from those calories in that deficit is going to come from carbohydrates, right? Now, the reason why is because they need carbohydrates for energy, but the goal because everybody's different, every coach is different, but my goal is to make sure that the student is hypernourishing their body. I follow something called a hypernourishment protocol. This is where the student is getting all the nutrients, more than enough nutrients that they need. So this is where we look at their micronutrients. These are your small nutrients, okay? That's why it's called micro. So vitamin A, B vitamins, C vitamins, your minerals like iron, calcium, potassium, things like that, right? So when 25% of their carbohydrates is coming from that, I'm mostly going to focus on, in that deficit, not so much grains and not so much legumes. I actually take that out because they're more calorically dense, right? Especially in the deficit, and especially for the ratio that I partition the macros for. So I usually focus more on vegetables, like dark leafy greens, and some fruits, like especially berries, so, like strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, things like that. And then and then also maybe some like potatoes as well, okay? Like sweet potatoes, purple potatoes, white potatoes, just a range of different potatoes. That's what I usually look for. The reason why is my reasoning behind it is because a lot of people already eat a lot of rice and beans. I live in Miami, right? Rice and beans is already like the number one staple. And I feel that a lot of people that come to my program are carb junkies. They're so obsessed with carbs. So I want them to be more obsessed with vegetables, because people eat tons of rice and beans on a normal basis, like on any diet, carnivore diet, like paleo, people pounding rice and beans, but they're not eating enough vegetables, right? And the vegetables has more nutrients than the rice and beans. So that's why I put them on more a vegetable, because I want to change up their taste palates. I want them to get more fiber into their gut microbiome. And then I want them to get more vitamins and minerals into their body so they can hypernourish their body. By doing this, by getting more fiber, getting more vitamins and minerals, and making that individual to consume more fruits and vegetables, that's going to change up their taste palates when it comes to starchy density foods, and also like junk food that they're usually consuming anyways. And then for the fats, this now they can have some seeds, because 40% of their diet is coming from the fats. The reason why I do fats versus more fats versus carbs, because fats is more calorically dense. And so, for example, 1 gram of fat is about 9 calories. So it's going to take a lot longer for it to burn versus carbohydrates, which is one gram of carb versus 4 calories, right? Now, the reason I do this is because, again, this individual, type A, right, person A, is sedentary, right? So they're not running no marathon. They're not playing 2 hours of tennis. They're not, doing a whole bunch of stuff, right? They're sedentary. So I'd rather them have more of fats versus carbs, because carbs burn faster than fats. So, and fats is going to be more satiated for for this type A person, who's usually, eating a bunch of carbs anyway, especially late at night. They're always hungry and they have sugar cravings all the time. This is why I cut the carbs, right? Because I'm trying to stop the addiction that they have with bad eating in the general. That's why when it comes to nutrition, nothing's black and white. On social media, a lot of people, even including myself, we say things black and white, and we say things that's polarizing, because it's marketing. It gets more views, it gets people attention. The only time I'm really very transparent is platforms like this, when I'm able to explain, because I can't explain it like this in 90 seconds. Instagram is only giving me 90 seconds to tell you why you should change the way you eat. That's the reality. And the reality is people have short attention spans. So that's why we have to do these things to get people's attention. But if people really want to learn beyond that, they have to listen to podcasts like this, and then actually enroll themselves in a program or something like that with a professional, where they're able to tell them the transparency. Now, some people just really believe their own shit. Some people just is just very polarized, and they really believe that, which is crazy. But the reality in nutrition is that it's going to be different depending on each individual. Now, if this type A person was more active, right? Like, let's say it was like someone like yourself who already, like, you play tennis 2 hours, you do a lot of endurance type sports, but let's say the goal was to still lose fat because you're skinny fat, right? I know you're not skinny fat, but theoretically you're ripped, right? But theoretically you're skinny fat. Then I would change it up, because I'm like, I'm not going to tell you like you can't play tennis anymore. You're doing something active. You're just skinny fat. So obviously what I'm going to do is still put you in a deficit, but I want you to continue to play your sports. All right. Because you're doing that on a like every other day. Right. So it's really coming down into the nutrition department. Maybe you're over consuming or something like that. So what I would do in that part would change up the macros. Deficit could still be in the caloric deficit, but when it comes to the partition, I might do, just an example, 25% protein, right? So 25% of the calories come from protein. 55% of your food is coming from carbs, right? Because you're active, you're doing a sport, right? And then for the fats, maybe like 55, 25. So it'd be like 20% would be from fats, right? And I would do something like that for someone like yourself, especially if you were skinny fat, because again, you're more active, you're doing more endurance sports. Maybe you might incorporate some functional training in there just to help with functionality, mobility, some strength. But overall, I wouldn't like tell you like not to play tennis anymore to lose body fat. I'll be like, no, we have to change up the ratio. and then put you in the deficit so you can get ripped, you know? So, and that's just an example of like how I do things. Is like, that's how I do it, because it really depends on what they're doing in their lifestyle. So hopefully that example makes sense.
Nice, nice. Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the most important things I think people don't realize it is that like in a plant-based diet or even in any kind of diet, they don't eat enough vegetables. They don't eat enough fruits.
No.
Like the micronutrients, the fiber, like because if you think about it, I always talk about it because there's even live organisms in the food that we eat, and the more alive the food, the more microbiota is in the food. For example,
Yeah.
fruit like an apple has we have research showing that an apple has like 1 million or 10 million bacteria growing on living on it. So people are not eating fresh food. That's one of the
Yeah.
biggest mistakes I think in any kind of diet is not like I eat a variety of foods, but in every single day I manage to get a huge intake of fruits and a huge intake of vegetables because of the micronutrients. And yeah, but how do they get the fats? You're talking about the
Yeah. Like hemp
types of
seeds, almonds, Brazil nuts, things like that, you know? But you see the difference. Like it really based on the ratio. And even with what I just said doesn't mean that it stays like that forever. Because obviously, let's say I was using you as an example, like for someone like you, yeah, you could do rice and beans, you know, because 55% of your calories come from that. But let's say like you stop, you got to your goals, and now you're ripped, and now you want to continue to improve your performance. This is another mistake that most people do. They stay in deficits too long, you know, and they don't do anything about that. And that's really a mistake between it's between both parties. It's between the coaches and also between the client or whoever, like the individual that's
athletes.
trying to get to the goals, because what happens usually is that let's say with the coach's fault, they usually sell some type of 8-week program to lose fat. But once you lose the fat, what do you do next? That's the end of the 8 weeks. So it's either what does the student do? They either do it again to continue to lose more body fat, or they give up and they go back to regular eating again, right? So in all reality, they didn't really learn shit. The only thing they learned how to be in a deficit. And then what happens is that this starts to curate into a yo-yo diet routine and bad eating routines, and starts playing a big effect to the psyche, because they feel like the only way I could get skinny is when I eat less and be in a deficit. And once I go back to eating normal again, or normal or bad eating habits, they end up gaining the weight back, right? So that's one mistake. Another mistake is that if there's coaches like myself who's trying to teach like reverse dieting, where we slowly add calories back to their lifestyle to get them back to maintenance, to make sure that their metabolism is actually utilizing all the calories, so there's no weight regain, right? And they can stay at a healthy weight, stay ripped, be able to eat a high caloric diet without the weight regain. This is the part that some coaches do teach. Like I teach that part. Some coaches don't, because they know, like they feel that it's either A, they don't need to, or B, they could segregate it into another program and sell it as another like BS cookie cutter stuff, or like I've say these in my videos, or just keep you as a lost sheep. Some people feel that if you don't teach them everything, they're always going to come back to you to learn more, to continue to learn. And this is some of the mistakes that I've seen in the fitness industry. I've seen many trainers do this. They don't want to educate their students. They don't want to educate their clients, because they feel like as long as they can keep them dumb, they always feel that they need them. So it's always going to, it's like you probably heard the saying, like, if everyone was healed, the medical industry would be out of business, right?
Sure.
Because the medical industry can only make money off of sick people, right? So as long as they keep you sick, you have to keep.
I don't agree with it, because, for example, for myself, the better I attend the client and educate him. He doesn't
Yeah.
need me. He doesn't need me anymore.
Yeah.
But he will show and tell everybody what it was his benefits. So
Yeah.
he's bringing his whole family, his whole friends. You know, he's bringing a lot more people in, so they can be, you know, helped by myself. And you know, it's not all about the money. It's all about like being able to serve people, being able to help people, and then you end up getting back. The more you help people out, the more they help you back. It's like a win-win
Absolutely.
situation. I agree.
Absolutely. No, and I'm the same. Like that's why I teach, I educate, because I tell my students this, and that's why I call them students. I don't call them clients, right? I call them students because when you work with me, you're here to learn, you know. And I tell them like your goal to lose weight isn't the goal; it's to change your lifestyle. I'm always saying lifestyle because when you change your lifestyle, you're doing it because you know it's good for you. You're not doing it for a goal. So when people ask me like, oh, like, so you won't, you know, you only eat healthy to because you're a bodybuilder or something, because you're vegan. I'm like, no, I eat healthy because I want to be healthy. You know, I don't want any type of health related diseases, you know, and the best medicine is preventive medicine. So that's why I do what I do. It's like brushing your teeth. Would you just stop brushing your teeth because you didn't feel like it? No, you're going to have yuck mouth, and then you're going to get gingivitis and cavities and a whole bunch of craziness, right? It's a you know, it's the consequences of not doing what you need to be doing, right? So it's a lifestyle. That's why you keep brushing your teeth. So it's the same thing with eating healthy foods. And it's the same thing what I do with my students is I educate them. I tell them like how you're going to get to point A to point B all the way to point Z, you know, like to start to finish. So when you're done, you're done. Because just like you said, if you educate them, they don't have to ever come back. And guess what? They're going to tell their friends. They're going to tell their families. And I also know too is that like with the whole vegan lifestyle in general, like there's so much negativity about it. I want the students to be educated because so if they get any type of confrontation, they're able to defend themselves, not just from how they look in their lifestyle and what they've achieved, but also the knowledge that they learn, so they can back up everything that they've done, you know. So that's another reason as well. So because I want people to be educated, and again, if they feel help and they know what they're talking about, and that's going to be a better testimonial to attract more clients if they want to work with me. That's up to them. But like they're able to stand their ground a lot better, and then they're able to educate others, and they could have sustainable results. And I feel like you know, since veganism does have a bad rap because there's so many different types of vegans. You know, you have hippies, raw vegans, a whole bunch of stuff right going on. You know, junk food vegan, a whole bunch of stuff. But at the end of the day, we all fall into one pot. I feel that the more people I can produce out as good representatives, you know, because they're knowledgeable, they look good, they feel good, they have spot on optimal blood work, like those are going to be the best examples of veganism. Yeah, I know it's like for animals and stuff like that, but not everyone is convinced by animals. Yeah, like people know animals die, so it's not all or anything. You know, and so unfortunately that's the truth, and some people can't take that truth. I know some vegans who can't understand that truth. They're blinded by it. But the reality is not everyone feels just because an animal dies that for food, it means that they should have some type of compassion, because a lot of people in this world are selfish. And that's why I do the business I do, because I know if I help them, then that's going to open up their mind to be able to help other animals as well. And that's what I've seen from the work that I do. Yeah, it's like if I'm able to help their problems, then they're more open about other problems that's going on in the world, because a lot of people have their own issues already. You know what I'm saying? And they don't care.
For sure.
Unfortunately.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah. I can talk even about myself. I didn't because back then there was no information about veganism, right? Most people didn't know what the vegan word means. But when I started, it was because of my health. It was not because of the animals. I was not even exposed there was no even YouTube or Instagram back then. It was like,
Yeah.
almost 20 years ago. It was like, so there was no information around for knowing about the animals. I was worrying about my health, and it made sense to eat more fresh food. And then I tried, all my health issues went away, and then I adopted, and then I was like, what? Like why I didn't eat meat? Like it was
Yeah.
stupid. Yeah, it was stupid. It was just because everybody does it. Because when you drop it, you see that you don't lack it, and you don't miss it, and you feel more pleasure in other stuff, and you also feel more empathy for the animals, because I was killing something that I don't even like the taste. Like I was paying for so much more for meat instead of just eating fruits and vegetables. I have like 350 fruit trees on my yard, so like it's way much cooler, to just pick fruit out
Right.
of,
Yeah.
like
Big from
pick
the
rare
fruit.
fruit out of the trees than like be butchering animals or paying
Yeah.
somebody, working a lot to pay somebody to butcher. So some stuff before we stopped. For example, what else? B12, for example. Let's talk about different stuff that people must be aware as well. What do you recommend? You take it, like what should be things that a new vegan should be watching out?
Yeah, B12 is one of them, just because like if you're not if you're not tracking what you're consuming, you should take a supplement, because you don't know if you're getting it or not. And the last thing you want is finding out you're B12 deficient of when you get your blood test. Like that's the last thing you want, because it's going to put a bad taste in your mouth. So I always say like supplement. But if you're tracking and then you know what you're doing, then you don't need a supplement. 'Cause I don't supplement. Yeah, I don't take any B12 supplements. I eat fortified foods like nutritional yeast. And I've gotten my blood tested, taken with my B12, and it's like it's way above normal. So by me taking any supplementation, it would just make it way too much because already is high enough. So like that's why I don't supplement, and I just do fortified foods. Like, but I track what I eat. So like that's it's a difference. And then you also iron. Another that's another big one. Is iron. You want to make sure that you're getting a proper amount of iron. If not, you can be anemic or very low in iron, have a low iron deficiency on a plant-based diet. So because you remember, like there's a lot of in meat, there's something called heme iron. So you're going to get an efficient amount of iron from that. But when it comes to plant-based, you can get a lot of iron, but you just have to eat a lot of plant-based foods. And what you think is a lot, again, if you're not tracking, you're lacking, because you don't know if you're getting enough iron, and you'd be surprised how much food you have to eat to get the proper amount of iron, and the type of combinations of foods that you need to eat to make sure that the absorption of the iron is efficient as well. Because on a plant-based diet, we have something called non-heme iron, so it's not as absorbable as heme, but it doesn't mean that it's bad or it's good or bad. It's just that you need to just do it more efficiently. So for example, I always tell my students, like, just make sure you have some type of vitamin C, like food with your iron foods, which most foods usually have, especially if you're eating abundance of different types of plant-based foods anyways. That's going to help with the absorption level. So for example, just a thing out of my head is like, if you do like a smoothie with orange and kale, perfect. If you have orange and kale smoothie, a lot of iron in it, especially if you pack that smoothie up with a bunch of kale and you put like one orange in there or two if you want it more sweeter. That's a iron smoothie powerhouse, because you're getting both of both worlds. My tofu scrambles are high in iron because I put a lot of spinach, and then I put a lot of bell peppers in there. Bell peppers is a sufficient vitamin C source, and then spinach is a good iron source. Another thing you can do as well with to get more iron is use iron skillets. Iron skillets can help with putting a little bit more iron ions into the foods. That can also help with iron absorption. There's something called iron fish. It's actual fish. It's like a little fish that's made out of iron. It's not a real fish. It's just a iron that looks like fish, and you can put that like in your stews or soups and stuff like that, like vegan chilies and things like that, and cook with it. Just make sure you don't freaking eat it, you know, swallow it. But like that's another way you can add like a little bit more iron ions. If you don't have like an iron pot, you have like a steel or Teflon or something like that, some other type of material.
So it's like it looks like a fish, but it's like made of iron. So you
Made of
just
iron.
put it inside the pot,
Yeah.
cook it, and then you take it out. Is that
Yeah,
it?
you take it out. Yeah, and then you take it out. Yep. And it's called
Never heard.
iron fish. Yeah. I mean, I don't use it, but I've heard about this technique, you know. But I don't use it because I use the iron skillet. So it's just easier. I don't want some piece of iron floating around in my food. You know, but that's the way you do it. And then also you have fortified foods as well. A lot of fortified foods are very high in iron, like some almond milks, you know, plant-based milks has a sufficient amount of iron in it. Fortified cereals that's vegan has a sufficient amount of iron. Those are other ways you can get it as well. But that's one of the things you want to focus on. So I always say, like, if you're tracking, is good because then you can see like what foods you need to eat, because some people just eat like vegetables and they're on a whole foods plant-based diet and they're just eating a variety of different types of plants, but they're not eating enough. And again, this is because of like literature. I mean, I even read some of the literature, and not trying to say anything bad, but a lot of literature that I read on veganism and talk about health and fitness, they never talk about the amount. You know, they just talk about eat a variety of plants, eat a variety of plants. Like that's why I hear over and over and over again. It doesn't matter how many books I read or doctors who wrote it. And I'm not putting nothing bad about them. I think they're great. But I think when it comes down to the amount, that's one thing they don't put in. And I guess just because like they're talking to the masses, so it's kind of hard to talk about the amount exactly, which I understand. But I feel for each individual, they should like track so they can actually see how much they're consuming. And if you can see that, then you can make sure that you're getting a proper amount and you're not like fixated on maybe a favorite vegan food that you like, a favorite vegan fish, and not vegan fish, vegan food or vegan snack that you might be consuming and probably not getting a proper amount of iron, because you could be eating iron rich foods, but it doesn't mean that you're getting enough still. You know what I'm saying? So that's the problem. Like beans is a good source of iron, but if you're only eating a cup, it's not enough. You know what I mean? It's not enough for a whole entire day. You know, so you have to, if you're eating spinach, like you could eat 25 grams of spinach, but it's not enough. You know, you probably need to eat a lot more than that. You know, so it's like this is again, people don't know because they're not tracking. And that's why I push the tracking a lot. I really push it a lot because I'm like, the only way you're going to start learning about nutrient density of foods, nutritional science, and really learn what works for you is when you first start tracking. You don't have to do it forever, but once you have an idea, like, all right, this is how much food I really need to be consuming from these different types of plants, then you have a better idea, so you won't be deficient or anything.
Nice. So you don't supplement B12 besides nutritional yeast, or do you eat other fortified foods besides nutritional yeast?
Pretty much just nutritional yeast, you know, that's it. You know, I get more than enough from that. And you see the macros in nutritional yeast is pretty crazy. It's like the B vitamins are off the charts. It's like 2-3 tablespoons. You're getting more than enough B vitamins than you actually need. You know, so you don't need that.
I think the same. I love nutritional yeast, like, and it feels more, less painful to just no painful at all, just to throw nutritional yeast on the food instead of taking pills.
Pills,
Like
yeah.
I personally don't like it. So yeah. Besides of that, one of our last questions would be: have you ever considered trying a raw food diet, or have you ever, just stay one day eating raw foods primarily or something like that? Or at least sprouting grains and legumes, for example?
The only time I'm raw is when I'm sick. So because that's the only thing I could stomach. But to like do it as a lifestyle or something like that. I told myself like maybe once I quit bodybuilding, I'm a lot older and I'm doing like more lesser sports or something like that. Like because I kind of told myself, cause I know like raw vegan is probably like one of the healthiest ones because like everything's rich and nothing's cooked, so you're getting all the vitamins like perfectly stable at its form. But I always told myself like I need to be out of the sport of bodybuilding, which I have my own plan to retire once I do achieve certain goals that I want to achieve, and because once, like for example, I told myself like once I get my IFBB Pro card, that probably be the near to the end of days for bodybuilding for me, just because like I know what's really recommended after that. Because in the IFBB league, it's not a tested league. They started testing. I mean, they actually started testing now. They have some natural shows, but majority of the shows are not tested, especially the big ones. To this day. So to me, I told myself like, if I get my IFBB Pro card in 2025, I might linger around and do some tested shows that they have, because I know, and I might do some untested shows just to say I've done it, But like, I think if the natural league and IFBB don't blow up and don't get big, and I see it's just like at the stalemate where it's like, it's not that many competitors, it's not that many natural pros, then I might retire and then pick another sport. Because I mean, even with me personally, I kind of want to do something different anyways. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I kind of, but I have goal. I like to accomplish certain things that I promised myself first before I move on to the next. So that's something that I did tell myself, was like, yeah, I mean, it really depends after what happens once I get the pro card and see what goes from there. So if I see like the natural side isn't really doing nothing, I think I might just retire and then start doing more like endurance type sports, which I haven't really decided what that would be indefinitely. But I kind of thought of things like maybe like biking or something like that, because I do like to bike, and cycle. So I don't know. We'll see though.
Nice. Yeah, I feel my best being raw. Like I'm suspicious to talk about it, right? Like I've been living for almost 18 years, but like yeah, the Maillard reaction end products, the toxins that are produced by cooking, the loss of nutrients, and eating more live food is better. Like you can feel it. There's no need. I for sure I have like 10 books published on the science behind it. Like.
Mm-hmm.
But still, you don't need the science. You just it feels more natural. It tastes more natural, and when you feel the feeling inside you when you eat food that is actually going to go bad in 1 or 2 days or 3 days out of the fridge, it's different. And for sure, I believe we're anthropoid primates when we were eating the Eden's diet for millions of years. Eden's, right? I'm not a religious person, but like the idea is pretty scientific somewhat. So
Yeah.
like, we're still anthropoid primates made for fruits and vegetables, and people don't realize it. But any last recommendations, tips that would you give to our listeners, and afterwards, how they can find you?
Absolutely. So the only thing I have to say is really like, hopefully this podcast was helpful, and if you're ever stuck with anything, I always say track. Like track what you're eating and see what you're lacking. That's going to be the first step in a plant-based diet. Is that like if you want to make sure you're getting all the vitamins and minerals, track. Track what you're eating normally, and then try to adjust from there. And again, use applications like MyFitnessPal or Chronometer. They're free. You can use them for free, so it won't cost you a dime. It only costs if you want the premium version and you want like full access with everything without the ads. You know what I mean? But like, but they are free apps. And then lastly, to find me, you can find me on any social media platform: LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all those platforms. Just type in my name, Korin Sutton, you'll find it. And then if you are looking for any type of services or anything like that, you can go to my website at bodyhdfitness.com or email me at korinsutton@bodyhdfitness.com.
Nice. It was a pleasure, my friend. Hope to see you in the next Veg Fest this year here in Brazil. I hope you like Brazil, although the politicians are really what's destroying the country, but
Yeah.
still, the country has its beautiful sides. And
No, I love Brazil. Yeah, I wanna get a home there, a second home.
nice. Yeah, I live in Rio de Janeiro, Saquarema, where the final stage for the Surf World Tour happens. It's like the last event, the main tournament for the year happens here actually, like 5 or 6 blocks from my house.
Oh, wow.
I have a tennis court on my yard, like 350 fruit trees. Like I went somewhat off the grid. Like to live healthy. Like I was tired of big cities. So whenever you come to Brazil, visit me and we can train and do some content together.
Oh, hell yeah, man! I didn't know you were in Rio because that's where I usually go. My girlfriend's parents is from there, so I
Oh,
usually
nice,
stop there. Yeah, yeah, that's dope.
nice.
So yeah, I'll definitely keep that in mind, man.
Yeah, I'm like 1 hour and a half from the capital, like from Rio de Janeiro, the city, right?
Hmm.
So it's Saquarema is really beautiful. You should take a look because like it was the best place I found around here. So it was a pleasure, my friend. Thank you for all the information, for sharing with us your knowledge, and for also being out there, like trying to educate people that health is produced by healthful living, and we don't need to kill other animals to get our protein and to live healthy.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
See ya. See everybody.